Death. What is death? One can call it a sensation, another an experience, and others.
Egyptians believed the most significant thing you could do in your life was die.
From an act feared and prayed against by many, to being revered as the culmination of one's struggles, victories, experiences, with it being the ultimate experience, the one to end all experiences, depending on what you believe in. To put it simply, death is when you die. We've all watched shows, we've all read books, we've all listened to fictional horror podcasts. And one of the common occurrences in these forms of media is death. Unless you're watching like Dora the Explorer. Oh, we've all had that moment where our favorite character died. Like, come on, we've all been there. Death in literature can be used in a multitude of ways. It can be used to show the level of threat a character can pose. It can be used to send a message, either to the in-universe characters or the audience. Heck, it can even be used to explain a character's motivations. For example, the loss of a loved one. And it is usually a combination of two or more of these, and I've barely even scratched the surface. But have you ever seen the death of a character being used to tell the story of that character? A while back, a mutual on Twitter, yes, that app, recommended me a one-shot manga called Mariko. And for the past few months, I haven't been able to get it off my mind, and I just decided to make a small analysis video on it. Also, you're going to notice the tone of the video is going to change from now henceforth because we're going to be discussing very serious topics. So, trigger warning. The video you're about to watch and the manga represented in it discuss heavy themes of suicide, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and self-harm as a major part of its story. So if you're sensitive to any of that or feel it might trigger you in any way, I would advise you click off the video. Thank you, and yeah, onto the video. Mariko is a Japanese one-shot manga originally published in the summer of 2020. Yes. And was the debut manga of the author Waka Hirako. And this story is about, imagine you're on your work break, eating ramen alone at a table, just vibing, with the news reporter's voice echoing from the television overhead. You turn to make out what they're saying, and you find out a girl had committed suicide by jumping off the balcony of her apartment on the 4th floor. And that girl was your best friend. This then takes you on a journey, reliving your past with that best friend and rediscovering yourself in the process. This is My Broken Mariko, and it breaks you. To the point the author had to include a disclaimer at the very beginning of chapter 1. From the art style, to the expressions, to the characters, to the themes, and its realistic portrayal of grief, that ground is just a ribbon that ties it all together. First of all, let's talk about the art. The manga alternates between a couple of styles, but for this video I've grouped them into 3. The first one is the manga's main art style, the primary style used in majority of the story. While trying to describe this style, the only word that was coming to mind was unpolished. As if since it was the author's debut manga, the art would expectedly be rough, like a mangaka just getting into their craft. But that's not the case. After reading through a couple of times, the art direction began to feel more and more intentional. The art style wasn't unpolished, it was raw, especially during scenes with a lot of motion, i.e. scenes with the characters expressing grief in one way or the other. This art style, coupled with a certain trait, evokes raw emotion in the reader, making emotional scenes hit much harder than if the art was quote-unquote cleaned up. This rougher, more haphazard art style, it feels like it's a reflection of Tomoyo's mind, but I might just be reading too much into it. The second art style, and my personal favorite, is the more detailed one. This one uses a lot less shading and darker elements, with the panels being much lighter. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, panels that are mostly dark and heavily shaded. Both are different sides of the same coin, with one being very peaceful and calm, and the other evoking an odd sense of dread and sorrow. Though the second one is used way less frequently, the few times it is actually used, it is done to perfection. This art style is usually used with panels involving Mariko herself. And now that I'm looking back at it, I don't think she's ever been drawn in any other style besides this one. And last but not least, this one. I don't really have much to say about this one. It's just the normal chibi panels that authors draw. The facial and complete physical expressions are cartoonishly exaggerated, just like other anime and manga. But despite the tone and themes of this manga, it works, albeit in a way that seems unrealistic to most people. But that's the beauty of it. That's the point. Grief is meant to be unrealistic. Bold claim, I know. But my point is, we're following Tomoyo through essentially the whole story, seeing her story, sympathizing with her, remembering Mariko through her, and all that. So it should not be a stretch to say we are viewing the story through Tomoyo's eyes. And if we are, then the unrealistic depiction of grief becomes more understandable since we are viewing her emotions as well. That over-expressiveness exaggerates her actions and expressions, and that exaggeration is what the pain of losing Mariko felt to Tomoyo. But speaking of Mariko's dad, who are the characters of this story? This part is going to be really short because there are only 2 characters that are actually relevant. Well, 2.5. But yeah, you should already know who they are by now before I get to them. So let's take a passing glance at all the characters with a speaking role in this story.
Huh?
この人は確か再婚相手の田村京子。
お姉ちゃん、どっから来た人？なんで一人なの？
女の子が一人で飲んじゃダメだよ。
ありがとう。このご恩は一生忘れません。
Yeah, that's about everyone. It's a very short manga. This story is about the effects of trauma. This story is about eternalizing a memory. This story is about the feeling of failure. This story is about grief. My Broken Mariko wears its themes on its sleeve, and it is very, very direct with its messaging. So this is going to be the meat and potatoes of this video. First of all, let's talk about Mariko, the main character of the story. You might be thinking, wait, that's not right. Tomoyo is the one we follow through the story. Remember what I said about a story being told through death? Well, yeah, I'll explain this in a bit. Mariko is a girl who never really had a chance. And I think even Tomoyo realized that. Born to a mom who left her as a child and a dad who became an abusive alcoholic because of that. As a child, she internalized the abuse and everything, blaming herself for the separation of her parents. Her mom then returned when she was in high school, and she saw this as her chance, her golden ticket to redeem herself. If she could be good, then her mom wouldn't leave again, right? Struggling to accept Mariko is truly gone. She tried to accept it by lying to herself of how it was inevitable and she shouldn't be sad because she couldn't do anything about it. But that whole charade falls apart the longer Mariko is away, and Tomoyo realizes she isn't coming back. Everything Tomoyo has done for Mariko since this story began has been to remember her, to honor her, and to be the proof that such a person actually lived, to tell her story and to hold on to her in any way for as long as possible. That is grief. Finally, one prominent thing I've hammered again and again in this story is that we're told Mariko's story through Tomoyo's eyes, and we see how much Tomoyo has tried to protect her. But that raises a question. At the end of the day, was Tomoyo just a tool for us, the readers, to view Mariko's story? Or did she actually serve her role as a protector in the story to Mariko? And I think even Tomoyo herself grapples with this question. She struggles with not ever being able to understand Mariko's trauma because obviously she can't. She hasn't been in that position before. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to save her because of that. So to her, it felt like she was just a record keeper of Mariko's life. And the eventual suicide just deepened that feeling. This was made pretty evident by Tomoyo expressing how she could never understand Mariko that way. Mariko remarks as to how much she enjoyed when Tomoyo scolded her, implying it had happened before. And countless times, Tomoyo had been the one comforting Mariko when these bad things happened because she couldn't find a way to solve the problem. She could only postpone or protect her from the effects of that problem. And now we circle back to Tomoyo's feeling of uselessness caused by all of this. Like I said, she could never truly solve the problem. She just postponed the effects. She couldn't find a way to stop Mariko from getting into all these toxic relationships. So she only saved her when she needed saving from those relationships. And this inability to save her is a very, very important part of the story because in an interview with the author, Waka Hirako, she talked about how the fundamental inspiration for the story and the characters was her mother, who was a survivor of abuse, and how she had thoughts which included, why couldn't I have been her mother instead? I wish I could have at least been her friend when she was a kid. Why can't I do anything about her past? And if you've read this manga, this is very well shown by Tomoyo and her feelings of helplessness towards the situation. And in the story, this manifested as Tomoyo constantly trying to save Mariko from her abusive parents, her abusive partners, herself even. And even the molester at the end of the story when she saw Mariko in that girl. And in the end, after constantly trying again and again and again to save her, she couldn't. There was nothing left to do. She was gone. My favorite parallels in the manga have to do with falling. The first time Tomoyo fell with Mariko was when she was saving her from her abusive parents. This demonstrated Tomoyo's feelings of still needing to save her. The second time was when she brought the urn back to her place and it fell, with Tomoyo leaping after it to symbolize her refusal to let Mariko go, to protect her even after death. And the last one being after she saved the girl from the molester. I find this scene really special because Tomoyo saw it as saving Mariko, as she used Mariko's urn, letting it go and having the ashes fly out, and she fell after it. This also came at the end of the story, and the whole thing signifies Tomoyo finally realizing she needs to let go and accepting that she's gone. But then she did leave again after she found out her husband had been sexually abusing Mariko. And after all this, what do you think Mariko was thinking about? Was it the abuse? Was it the rape? No, It was how to get her mom back, because she did not care about herself. She downright hated herself. And the only way to honor the dead among us is to keep them alive through us, to keep their legacy and their memories alive. And then the final scene hits us with Mariko's suicide note, something Tomoyo had wished she'd had, due to it seeming like Mariko left without even saying goodbye. And as she reads it, we aren't shown what it says, because this is when Tomoyo has learned to let go, and this is their story, not ours to see or know. I mean, if you're still curious, the author speculated on what it might have been in that note, and like Gold Roger, you have to find that yourself. I leave the treasure to you. And finally, to answer the question, was Tomoyo a spectator or a protector? Neither. She was Mariko's friend. Thanks for watching. This was my first ever analysis video on any piece of media again, so if you enjoyed it, thank you, and if you had any problems with it, please speak up. I will likely not make another one like this for a while, but media analysis and literacy is like kind of a small hobby for me, and yeah, I really enjoyed making this, so I hope this video does well, to be honest, but I don't really care as much. So yeah, make sure to take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and yeah, go hug your best friend. I have linked the hotlines for multiple suicide prevention organizations around the world, so if you feel like anything's wrong, please don't hesitate to give it a call. And heck, my comments are always open if you want to talk. So yeah, remember to drink water and stay safe out there.